Hey guys. Okay, so today we are going to start with a video that I think that you might find a little intriguing. All of us have a little bit of experience with this. It's basically two devices that are talking to each other. So I'm going to go ahead and play the clip.
If you ever need to talk or need more advice, I'm here for you.
I appreciate that. It's always good to have a sounding board. I'll definitely let you know how it goes. Thanks for the support.
Anytime. I'm glad to be here for you. Take care and good luck with your chat.
Thanks a bunch. I'll catch you later and let you know how everything turns out. Take care.
Sounds good. Talk to you later. Take care.
You too. Have a great one.
So
and,
essentially what we're watching here is two smartphones that have like the ChatGPT voice that's going on, and they're both talking to each other. And, they're not really having a real conversation. If they're just kind of going back and forth, there's really a lack of authenticity there. And if you think about it, are they really, really communicating? And, I think all of us as humans, we are bringing in this whole aspect of using AI. Are we talking to real, like having real interactions if we're talking to AI? Like if you're on a customer service call, or if there's a bot or something like that, how do you know if the communication that you're having is authentic? Because it's one thing to have like a human being and trust a human being. But if you don't know that human being is actually a human being or a computer, an algorithm, where does that aspect of trust come in? So today, our discussion is all centralized around authenticity and communication, but even on a larger scale, with all of this technology and innovation coming in, AI as a whole is really changing that social fabric that we have going. So that is our topic for today. So guys, welcome to Alia & Co., the podcast where we talk about complex things and we break them down and we simplify them. I'm your host, Alia Kizilbash, and today we have Josh Furstoss with us here. He's an amazing person, but he also is an award-winning innovator. He has advised over 75 technology companies. He's an exited founder, but he's also developed products in fintech, govtech, healthcare tech. But it's not just that he's helped create these products. These are innovative, technologically just forward products, but he also understands how they are impacting the people that are using them. And the people that are using them, they're humans, they're dynamic. It affects them on so many different levels. So that is our conversation for today. So Josh, I just played this video. What did you think?
Well, the funny thing is I actually expected it to be a different video. I thought it was going to be the gibberlink mode thing, if you've seen that one.
I've never seen that one. What's that about?
So it's interesting. It's when two artificial intelligences or two computers are talking to each other, it switches out of the voice mode and into like this rhythmic beeping. You can almost think about it like when like computer goes to dial up, right? It's like boop, 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 and it starts transmitting that information much faster because using like say English as a way to translate information is fairly inefficient actually for a computer. Mm-hmm. So that's where my brain was at. I thought it was going to be something completely different.
But do you think it detected the fact that it was a computer that it was talking to?
In that voice mode, no. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's not set up necessarily to do that. Or maybe it is in this current version. But honestly, no. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it really matters, right? Like ultimately, it's like a voice encoder that's supposed to respond to whatever it's, getting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, okay. So kind of that extension to it, right? I think as humans, we trust GPS, we trust autopilot on planes, but then we panic at the idea of AI taking over. What do you think about that?
I think, it's a reasonable fear to have. Like there's like different cases about like how this kind of plays out. And I think it's good to be cautious and aware of things. And I think it allows us to probably maneuver in a direction that's, say, more efficient for us. Like you can think about a lot of it like kind of like tractors, where during the Industrial Revolution, a vast amount of people worked on farms and they'd harvest wheat or potatoes or whatever. And then tractors came around and you just didn't need that many people actually working on farms. So a lot of people said, these tractors aren't going to take my jobs. I've heard of them in the newspaper. I don't believe it.
Mhm.
And a lot of people during the Great Migration moved actually to the cities. Like we're in Chicago right now. This is a vast amount of people moved here during that time period to work in the factories, to work in the basically like cattle yards. And I think it will have a great migration of sorts. Maybe not physically in movement. However, that would be lovely if people could spread out from the cities, have more land, breathe a little bit more. But ultimately, I think we'll have a great migration in the sense of the jobs and how we're allocating our time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the anxiety and the fear that we feel. What that is that it's an understanding that we need to take our own agency and to make those moves. But people are unsure of what the even correct moves are to make.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people are just looking for them, or looking to be told, what do? I have a job in a corporation. I do operations, for example. And I realize I'm using AI more and more day to day, take over my tasks. And I realize one day I'm going to be out of a job here, but I'm 30 years into an operations career.
Mm.
How do I switch? And that's really scary.
Mm.
But it's probably equally scary for someone that's worked on a farm for 20 years harvesting wheat to move across the country on train to work in a factory when they've never done that before. So we've gotten through this previously, but it doesn't make it less difficult for the individual.
What do you think about that human aspect to it, to be selective of what you trust? Because there is a period where you're, wow, this is new, what's going to happen? We're fearful. But then there are certain places where you learn to let go. Is that a very human psychological response, or is it something maybe external that is kind of allowing for them to get used to the idea that this is kind of maybe where we're headed?
I think a lot of people need to let go. It's tough, and I struggle with it a lot. I'd say if you were taking an overall distribution of human intelligence, or just like interactions with people across the board and compare it to AI, you'd probably be better off trusting AI most of the time. And I think that people will say, oh, AI hallucinates, it's fallible, it lies sometimes. But so do people, right? So the real question is like, does AI know more than the average person, and is it being more accurate than the average person?
Mm-hmm.
I think about this with electric cars, or not electric cars, but self-driving cars frequently. We're like, oh my God, this is dangerous. There's crashes and all this stuff. But then compared against human drivers, where the fatality rate is much higher,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be proven to some extent to be true that when we do let go, incidences of our own harm reduce.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still hard,
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely there's a component there's a comfort level. And eventually over time, the more you hear, like in marketing, you see basically like an ad word or an ad a few times, and initially you don't trust it, but then over time you've seen it enough to kind of have that brand recognition. So totally, that's kind of I think just the us human nature, right? I mean, there's that aspect to it, but then it's also human nature to be too trusting. When you think of privacy and how the general public is looking at privacy, where they're having Snapchat and, all of these private chats and, perhaps maybe kind of like these pages that exist that most people don't know about. And they think that it's private, but it's not actually private, And so do you think that people can, at the same kind of like opposition, right? Like be too trusting?
It's a hard question. So I was disillusioned from this when I was quite young. I used to work in GovTech.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on a lot of things for the government. And my understanding of privacy just went completely out the window. Like I just, from that on, believed that there was no such thing as privacy.
Yeah.
There's privacy with your friends or with like people like that. It's like, you can still have a secret. But I don't know. I think privacy matters. But I think that as far as digital privacy goes, it barely exists.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that even amongst friends, if you have a smartphone around, chances are maybe that conversation is being picked up. I mean, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but even if a device is turned off, it could still be listening. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like this is all targeted ads, right? So it's like I'm talking about a Samsung washer and dryer or something. Or I'm talking about, I don't know, we're out of detergent among that line of thought. And your phone is then going to start serving you ads. Like suddenly you get a detergent ad on your TV, right? It's not a coincidence. So there's actually an interesting case around this where like they were able to reduce the cost dramatically of the Samsung smart TVs because they had a listening capability installed in them to that they would then sell to advertisers, which is really just more of an advanced Nielsen box, if you remember those, where people would take down their ratings and how many people are in their house to watch a television show.
But they know about that, right?
They
Like
don't-
what's, they
know about this
actively
and they're doing
knew.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the base assumption should be that privacy with regard to big data and corporations doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
It's just gone.
So that's something to know for whoever's listening. You don't have privacy. I mean, especially and I think that is a misconception, especially around like teens and people that are putting things out there. And I mean, I remember growing up in an age where you're getting away with a lot of things because there are no devices. Nobody is actually like if something goes wrong at a party. And if you look at like kind of like those rom-coms from like back in the 80s or whatever, you'll see that like, everybody's like, ha ha ha, laughing at the person that's having an embarrassing moment at the party or whatever, right? But if you fast forward to those kind of movies now, what happens? What do you see? Yes, that person is having an embarrassing moment, but everybody's holding up their phone and they're watching that happen and they're recording it happen. So, I mean, I feel like we're living in a society where either we get comfortable with the fact that we have no privacy, or, I mean, you can just kind of live in this kind of state where you're not sure, but things have moved really fast. And, I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I think that it's a time to evaluate how we feel about shame or guilt or these kind of things, where it's like all of us are trying to, in some capacity, or most of us in some capacity, are trying to live our truth. And then if you're living your truth, just to not be ashamed about, the things that might make you, like if someone has an embarrassing hobby, it's like, just embrace your embarrassing hobby because it's probably the only way around it. I wish I had better advice.
Yeah.
But
I think it's just to bring that thought out there. And I think everybody will have their own kind of journey with it.
Yeah.
But it's an important thought to consider also, just the shame of it, or understanding that, hey, now that you have no privacy, perhaps maybe you should shift the way that you're looking at the things that you might be, embarrassed to share or you're shameful about. So I think that is definitely a valid thing. And at the rate of that moving as fast as it has, how basically society has shifted, where now we went from nobody knew where anybody was to now it's like everybody knows where everybody is and what's happening. We talked about broadband internet, right? And that took about 20 years to become kind of normalized, where AI now in 2 years, right? It's moving pretty fast. So, I mean, what do you think about do you think people are ready for something that is changing that fast?
No, I don't. I think that people think about things moving like gradually, not logarithmically. More, a better word than gradual would be linearly. They're like, oh, maybe it doubles next year, but they don't see like a parabolic curve to it. But the way that these things generally work is they all go parabolic. So you can expect, like, there's a good research paper called AI 2027 that I recommend people download and read. There's a show on Netflix called Pantheon for people that don't want to read research papers.
There's a show?
Yeah, it's really fantastic. AMC made it. It's on Netflix. I think it's like a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, okay. I'll be watching this tomorrow. Okay, tonight I will be binge watching.
I think it's 2 seasons, like 24 episodes that are like 30 minutes each. Pantheon. It's very good.
Okay, I'll be watching it.
But yeah, I think that people are broadly bad at seeing this kind of adoption curve. People in like venture capital and stuff like this are fairly used to it. Like you can think about like, this is the whole idea, right? So you invest a bunch of money up front and then, you lose money. And then eventually something is in every single person's hands and it's worth billions of dollars.
Right.
We probably need to be more cognizant of it. And I think the message that I would share is like AGI is here. It's just not widely distributed. So people are like, oh, it'll get there eventually. And it's like, no, it is there. Like AI is winning math competitions and coding competitions and all these things like that. And I'm not winning math competitions. You're not winning math competitions. So like broadly, it's more capable than we are.
Right.
It's just about how you're using it.
Can you explain the difference between GPT and AGI? Because I think that, perhaps maybe, just the understanding of how it reasons, because we have ChatGPT and we want to get into like the 4.0 or whatever and all the different kinds of ways that you can use ChatGPT to your fullest advantage and, and what those things actually are.
Yeah.
But then think about like AGI, like, how is that different and what is that and why is that something that people think is not there, but it actually is?
Well, so AGI is a moving definition. So it's artificial general intelligence, which if you just take it at face value, like the way that people would have theorized this, we're already there, right? Like, is this as intelligent as a human being? And if I talk to it, without knowing this existed, would I believe I'm talking to a human being? And the answer is probably yes. Like the comparison of GPT, so ChatGPT or OpenAI has created a foundational model. Other companies also have foundational models. There are a variety of models that they have. You can probably see in the, or you definitely can see in the drop-down menu at the top. So for example, 4.0 is a fairly fast model that's meant to put out information quickly. It's probably best used as a quick search or reference tool.
It's not the slower model. It's actually, there's a reason for each one. So yes, 4.0.
Yeah, so
yes.
O3, and I'm not going to go for every single one, but I'll just kind of separate them out.
Yeah.
O3 is their reasoning model, which is the slower one, right? And that's using reasoning tokens to check itself, to self-prompt, to complete more complex tasks.
Can you give an example of a complex task that maybe that would be good for?
Yeah, like I use Manus a lot, which is actually, it's a completely different system. But if I wrote, in fact, I did this a little bit ago, is I wrote build Tetris in there, 2 words. And then what it did is it prompted itself to figure out, like, we're going to make a design spec of how we do this. It started opening up a screen on a virtual computer through a VPN. And then it started programming it in Python. It started programming it all. Then it started getting together a graphics library. Then it produced me, 10 different files, as well as launched a website so I could play Tetris on it. So, but I mean, that took like a few minutes and cost, I don't know, $10, $15. I could be overestimating that. I didn't keep track well. Probably less than that, honestly, probably a few dollars. But that's kind of what I mean. It's like, if I said, build Tetris into like a basic model, what it would say is, okay, like, what do you want to do next? Here's like kind of design spec. It wouldn't be like, I'm going to go make the design spec. Then, cool, I have a design spec. Now I'm going to take that and I'm just going to start executing down that list of the 10 things that it produced and do all 10 of those things.
Right.
And then keep self-prompting itself until the product is released, and then use the product to make sure that it works effectively. So that's what I mean by that.
Interesting. So it's definitely more elaborate, more kind of full service, but then also reasoning on its own and coming up with the next steps and being creative versus, okay, this is the answer. And it's very kind of like flatline, very one-dimensional, whereas there's a lot more thought. And to that also, I think I mentioned, where you have like the good outcomes of AI, there's also like the negative aspect where people can use it for bad things. And I remember I was talking to somebody and they mentioned that, they had built this, I guess, like AGI model or whatnot. And they were saying, asked it to commit a crime where, go, do something where, you take this, et cetera, right? So it started kind of thinking about all the different ways. But then also one of the components was it listed a job listing on Indeed, hired somebody to go to the store in real life and actually do one component of this crime. I think that they're just the ways that it can think about it are very creative.
Like one of the biggest concerns is probably like an unchained model without regulation, like helping someone create like chemical weapons, right? Like things like pseudo weapons of mass destruction or actual weapons of mass destruction. That's probably where the majority of my concern comes in.
Right.
Yeah.
To that, I mean, I'd say, we're all kind of spooked to some degree about AI, right? Because there's a lot of uncertainty there, and there are certain things that are here right now that people are freaking out about, but do you think that while we may be freaking about XYZ right now, it might become something that is very much so normalized later down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything new is scary.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a perception that, I got advice from a mentor like a long time ago that was you can either be, I want to try to find the right words. You can either like sound really smart and be dismissive of like a new trend, which is great to sound smart, or you can embrace a new trend. You can make money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably better just to embrace a new trend and make money and not be scared of it,
Mm-hmm.
or even not to make money, but like just to embrace it more broadly. Like you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. Pretend they shut down all of the foundational models right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's open source ones that people can spin up locally.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's just not happening. So like this is just the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like once the automobile came out, we didn't say, you know what, I'm really going to stick to horses.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're really going to stick to horses.
yeah, it's like like you can go be Amish, like nobody's stopping you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they live a lovely life,
Yeah.
but I don't want to.
Yeah. Right, exactly. What do you think about the thought that, I mean, I guess this is I would say, a physiological thing, right? Where as humans, we are not built to be entertained every moment of the day, but it seems now just the way that not just AI, but how we have so much access to information. There's almost kind of like a greed to this kind of information.
Yeah.
Perhaps even the way that it's being programmed by, they're doing these psychological studies where, okay, we need to provide these dopamine hits, and people will come back and refresh. And, do you think that we are kind of beings that are okay to be hyperstimulated? Or do you think that maybe that might be something that's kind of having us head in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I mean, they did experiments about this a long time ago with like mice and like the ability for them just to hit pleasure sensors in their brain anytime that they want. And they effectively become completely unproductive. So like I view, this is more of a social media discussion than like an AI discussion, but I see it as like digital junk food where we feel like we're getting information, but we're not. So you get stuck into like a loop of like watching a bunch of reels or something like that, but you're not, there might be one nugget of goodness in every 5 to 10 nuggets. So in the same way that like a Happy Meal technically contains like nutrients. So, but it's not what you should eat every day.
Right.
And I think, everything in moderation. The negative effects to humanity, there's different negative effects to humanity between AI and social media for sure. But with regard to what you're talking about, yeah, I mean, like it's not good.
Yeah.
Like the lovely case for all of this would really be is that we help return to a world where, okay, so we made technology to get rid of things that we don't like doing or that are inefficient for humans. So one person could put out more productive labor than just one person with like a hammer, right? You could have a machine that hammers all day and doesn't need food and just needs some kind of energy input. But I think this goes full circle back to us being more human if it goes in the right direction. Where we're not spending time on software platforms all day and, reading emails and inextricably connected to our phones, or we're spending more time sitting down like this and enjoying each other's presence. And to me, that seems more ideal. Now, there's a lot of like socioeconomic like concerns regard to like value creation and living within a society like we do, when your ability to create increased productive labor shrinks. But broadly, I hope that allows us to be more interconnected with the humans in our life and less caught up in some, digital dopamine like cycle.
So that's an interesting point that you make. And I would love to hear your thoughts about the controlling factors when it comes to a human being who should technically have, just his life, that had the onus of controlling their own lives, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, because technology has become this very invasive portion in our lives, I mean, it's hard to not use it. Who's actually holding the pen? Is it the builders? Is it the government? Or is it us as a society, as humans? Who's creating this, and who's drafting that, okay, this is the way that we do things?
I mean, I think we collectively, it works on all those levels, right? So like at the government level, you're thinking about like geostrategic objectives, like, okay, like if China gets these levels of AI first, then these could have these kind of ramifications for, say, like a stronghold on the global economy.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for war? What does that mean for power? What does that mean for these kind of things?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the government definitely has. Also, like the other thing is like if you have super intelligence, which is like above AGI, then one of the limiting factors for the progress of humanity is like how many Albert Einsteins are born in a generation? Very, very, very few.
Mm-hmm.
But you could hypothetically have infinite Albert Einsteins, only limited by energy input into the system. So for a government, that's really useful. Or for science, it's very useful. And for the corporations who are designing the foundational models, be it Google or Meta or OpenAI with Microsoft, like, they're definitely enabling us with the capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that we use it, I think, comes up down to market forces.
Mm-hmm.
If you were, I'm just going to talk about hammers again, where it's like, if you were someone tasked with building houses in like the Bronze Age,
Mm-hmm.
and most people didn't have steel tools, they hadn't been invented yet, then that would be fine. And you'd be competing with everyone else equally. But then someone comes around with like a more efficient tool, and now they're building houses for cheaper, and now you're forced to also put up the cost for that more expensive tool to compete within the marketplace.
Mm.
Or, they're just going to build houses cheaper than you, and you're going to go out of business. So a lot of these are going to be economic drivers that force people to adopt or create certain tools so that they can stay in business. And then below that are the people that are employed at those companies who then are forced to adopt those tools so they can get a paycheck and, afford their home or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting point because I think if you think about the economics of it, I know we had a conversation before where it's like there is a component to the control happening on the technology side, but there always is some format of a human sort of trait that is controlling, right? So, if you think about welfare or you think about the housing market or greed or, the idea of, what's more powerful, pain, like the infliction of pain upon somebody, or I need money, so I would love for you to talk on that because I know that we were discussing that and there's a specific kind of methodology or mindset that you have towards that. I'd love for you to elaborate on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll lay out my pieces very quickly, and I don't want this to be an endorsement of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in no way advocating for violence, but I think that like violence is the epitome of power,
Mm-hmm.
or hopefully I said that correctly.
Yeah.
So below that would be like things like economic power,
Mm-hmm.
soft power, meaning like culture,
Mm-hmm.
influence, these kind of things.
And just to kind of, elaborate a little bit more, like if somebody was basically tied up and says, I'm going to do something sadistic to you, etc., you would say, I don't care how much money it takes, please don't deform me or something like that.
Yeah, you can say
so in that sense,
the
pain.
people kidnapping the Bitcoin millionaires/billionaires, right? It's
Right.
like, you will give me your Bitcoin wallet or give them your Bitcoin wallet, or I'm going to do X incredibly harmful thing to you.
Right, exactly.
And you're going to give the money over because ultimately it's like,
pain has more power.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and this comes down to the whole government thing of like, you want to yield as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what gets you power.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, practically in life, police exist,
Mm-hmm.
laws exist, these kind of things. For us, it's more about economic power or, and you could have an argument over if social status is more important than economic power, which I believe to be broadly true. I think that people would willingly exchange vast amounts of money to have higher perceived social status than actually have the money itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So basically within that sphere is what you're saying is that regardless of technology, there is a very human component of what we as humans deem to be powerful, aside from, okay, technology is getting more powerful, we're controlling certain aspects to what we are finding to be worthy of paying attention to within a society outside of technology. Are they kind of mutually exclusive?
I mean, if you believe in free will, then you have control over your life, right? And which means that like my prerogative is in concentric circles is like provide for my family, then provide for my friends, then provide for my broader community, then like, you know, maybe my city, then my country, then my planet, you know? So like, I think there's nothing wrong with being self-interest in that way, where like people's prerogative should probably be for their own self-preservation and for the preservation of the people they love and care about. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. I know that you were mentioning that during the .com phase, that era, where there wasn't a lot of regulation when it came to the government. If it would have regulated sooner, we wouldn't have been able to get to where we are today in terms of that innovation. And I think a lot of people look at AI and it is doing things that we can't even fathom in our minds. And so a lot of lawmakers, and I know you've worked with government, but me as well, I feel like they are highly siloed. So you cannot be, a lot of people within these, non-collaborative spaces, they just don't understand, right? You might be dealing with people that are there to okay that new technology, but they don't know technology. So it feels like they're kind of, there's like a lack of understanding when it comes to it. So when it comes to AI, do you think that maybe we shouldn't be creating any rules because we're stunting our growth when it comes to that? Or, how do you feel about rules when it comes to it from a government perspective?
Super light touch is my thing about it. Like, how do I put this? You shouldn't be able to use AI image generation to make child porn, for instance. Like, that should just not be a thing. You should not, going back to like chemical and biological weapons, AI should not engage with you in any capacity to try to do those kind of things. I would just broadly say that if there is regulation, it should be to only prevent the AI from yielding results that enable you to explicitly commit illegal activities. That said, there are going to be unchained models that, defense contractors or governments use to accomplish those goals regardless. So it's, I would say an incredibly light regulatory touch in which if you are not intending to do things that are broadly harmful to humanity, then you shouldn't be able to perceive those regulations whatsoever.
And then what to the point of like corporations who are coming up with these, because at the end of the day, it's, a lot of people look at whatever ChatGPT search there is, and then whatever the answer is just the word of God, right? Like, this is the answer. But at the end of the day, there is some programmer that is sitting there that is a flawed human being that is creating these algorithms that maybe we shouldn't be as trusting of to some degree. So, when it comes to that, should corporations be the ones that are in charge of like that parent to child, where it's like you just gave your kid a smartphone? You need to turn up the privacies on that because the kid doesn't know. It doesn't know what's bad for it. It could just go scrolling around and find something that because it just doesn't know. So do you think that role should be with corporations, where they're saying that, hey, we know that human beings, like, the people that are using our services do not understand how they're using this. We should protect their privacy.
I think there's some, like, I'll give you an example. Like, inside of a corporation, you can do different levels of permissioning. And I think that's really important, where it's like, pretend we work at the same company. I shouldn't be able to use our internal AI tool to ask what your salary is to compare it to mine. Like, that wouldn't be
Why not?
Right. Well, I think that is fair, right? Yeah. Maybe I should. But I'm just trying to come up with an example of something that would be, say, against traditional HR practices.
Yeah, okay. So traditional HR practices, but there was a time where you couldn't look up somebody's house and know what price it was. Now it's like, it's okay. And
it's what people are comfortable with and what the HR teams think is right. Like, maybe I'll give a more explicit example. If I am working at a defense contractor or I'm working at a company that happens to work with the government, and certain people have security clearance and certain people do not have security clearance. I should not be able to talk to the internal AI to yield results on projects that require security clearance.
Right.
Like, that would be very bad. So, like, that's about us permissioning these systems internally, which is something that we're already quite good about with software. And the broader example of, like, parent-to-child relationship kind of stuff, I think that it is good for humanity to have access to the maximum amount of knowledge that is available to the individual at all times. Everyone should have the right to access free knowledge in a free society. And I don't know, I really do believe in a very light touch approach to this, because I'm worried about the Luddite view that we need to get rid of these things. It's, without being too political here, it's, if somebody does not have a strong understanding of technology or science, and therefore they are scared of it, and they want to tell everyone else how to live their life, you know, and they're like, you know what, the vaccines are going to give you autism, or like whatever. It, like, they should be freely allowed to express their opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, they should get rid of vaccines for the people that have read or understood the science. Yeah. No. You know?
Agreed.
So, like, maybe we shouldn't have people that fundamentally don't understand how these things work. Because, and to your point earlier, it's like, should I trust this? Oh, a programmer did all this stuff. And it's like, it's mostly indexing knowledge based on things that humans publish on the internet.
Right. That's
so true. It's trained off of what we have said and what we've done. And if it's, and granted, there are hallucinations, but it's getting a lot better with the reasoning. And I think that we'll see this start to go down pretty dramatically in the near future. And it's already down very dramatically from where it was, like even a year or 2 years ago. So if we believe the AI is misinforming us, really the people that are misinforming us on the base, with the exclusion of like really bad hallucinations, are just us. And maybe we need to go through our cortex of knowledge that we've published to the internet and maybe update some things to,
I mean, it's,
you know,
complex.
we thought putting leeches on people would cure diseases at one point. You know, I wouldn't want to train a medical AI on those kind of books. Right. Leeches are not a great way to cure someone of cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you're right, though. I think that you have to use the right stuff, like you'd use the, peer-reviewed research or something like that, Okay, so there's that aspect to it. Regardless of whatever these are pretty nuanced, like, ideas, right? When it comes to where we're kind of in some ways philosophizing, where we're headed, right? Because it could be right and it could be wrong, but at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that it is freeing up our time. It is freeing up our time. We have more time than ever there are things that, you could easily search up on one of these, these agents and quickly get things done so efficiently that might have taken you a whole week to do, you know, and that is very, very, that is highly helpful. But now when that happens, and over time, it's just only going to get better, right? In the sense that we're going to have more and more time, especially like even in the workforce, right? Like, where it's like there are certain things that have just made our lives way easier because we don't have to do the scut work, the manual labor. But now what happens to society then? Who's going to be the leader? Like, who are the leaders in society? Who are the billionaires, trillionaires, maybe even? And what are people like maybe in the middle class or lower middle class or, poverty stricken? Is there even poverty? I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
Like I said, in the endpoint, in our current economic model, I think poverty still exists. The real question comes down to the middle class and how that broadly functions. Personally, I think we'll move towards diamond-shaped organizations that are dramatically more fractal, meaning that instead of having a law firm where you have a bunch of partners and a bunch of paralegals and a bunch of assistants, you have 2 partners and maybe 1 assistant or 1 paralegal and 200 AI agents. And those partners can fill their whole calendar with just meetings with clients. Ultimately, I still want to talk to a lawyer. And in court, I probably still legally need a lawyer to represent me because laws move slower than technology does. So there's still value to that. But they'll probably get more and more and more niche to compete in the market space because these firms don't need to be a monolith. So you have very niche ad agencies, very niche marketing agencies, these kind of things where most people will be then client facing. They'll be either operationally moving towards making more efficient AI systems where your process is really your product instead of logging into like a platform. And more people will be doing sales and stuff like that where trust and charisma and stuff like that is an influencing factor. And that doesn't work for everyone. So like, let's talk about like working class jobs. Like, I think broadly we'll still want like people serving us at restaurants.
What about those, you go to the sushi place and the robot brings you out your drink and
I think that's a novelty.
Okay.
I think that like you go there because of that. But like broadly, like if you went to a nice restaurant, you'd still enjoy to have a person doing that because it's the atmosphere of it. Where like when you go to the sushi place with like the conveyor belt, like something about the vibe, you don't have this higher level.
It's a little
vibe.
Stale, kind of like there's like clinical almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going there for an experience. So that's what you're going to be paying for. And a lot of people are going to be delivering the experience. Like if you go to a ballet, right, I don't want to see robots on stage because what I'm paying for is the performance of people that are very skilled at their craft. But not everyone can be a ballet dancer or say a server at a high-end restaurant. So the jobs that I have a lot of questions about are things like landscaper. So I know it's probably been AI focused, but I'm going to transition over to robotics because these converge. Right now a guy owns a small landscaping company. He serves a few neighborhoods. He has a truck with a trailer attached to it, and out of the back comes this large lawn mowing device someone sits on. And some guys mow your lawn and trim your hedges and these kind of things. But that's going to be a drone, and all the construction vehicles like the forklift, right? There doesn't need to be, it's not going to be a humanoid robot sitting in a forklift. It's going to be a robot forklift.
Right.
So then we don't really need a forklift operator, which was a highly paid job for a working class individual. So what does that person do? I don't know, right? They've spent most of their life staying, in line with forklift regulations. And this is the bigger concern about like, self-driving cars, because a vast amount of American men are employed in the trucking sector, or the amount of people that drive Ubers or things like that, where those wouldn't necessarily be required. I wish I had like the most confident answer for you ever. I think the only thing I have like high confidence in is that there'll be a lot of very fractal, small niche organizations that will serve more niche economic needs. And that'll definitely be a thing for the next few years. Then should be a transition away from platforms where tasks are just being completed autonomously. I don't know. But I don't want to pretend to know.
Right.
But I know that we've gone through this so many times as humans that I don't think it's going to be broadly different. Like harkening back to tractors, right? Like I know that the person living on that farm did not know what their life was going to be like when they moved north and came to Chicago to work in a factory. They did not know if the factories are going to automate their job away tomorrow with some new fancy machine, but they had to take that risk to make it happen because of the economic factors. And, the people that stayed on the farm, eventually like tractors evolved to be like self-driving combine harvesters that do vastly more than pull a plow.
So do you think that perhaps maybe people's lifestyles will be better to some degree? I mean, if you're giving the example of farming all day and then now working in a different, like, you have like the automated harvesters and whatnot, definitely that lifestyle improves, but then also it gives you time to be creative. Do you think people will have time to have more pursuits? Because the thing is that, to have automation within, these devices or anything, programs, it's not as expensive as having to hire one individual,
Yeah.
So maybe there's more money that's left over to be able to kind of create a pool where people have a better lifestyle, you think?
I think that's a policy decision the government will have to make, right? Like people have to debate out UBI and things like that if those things need to exist or should be implemented. Like going back to like what's in our control, I think that people are going to find niches that they can provide value in, that people will still broadly provide value. And if we look back to like the Enlightenment, when people are given more leisure time, then they're able to come up with new and influential ideas. That said, generally the way that like capitalism functions is that if a task previously took 2 hours to do, and now it takes, let's say 1 minute to do, then you're going to fill the rest of your day with just tasks that take up to 40 hours a week to do, right? Maybe we have a discussion about moving to a 4-day work week or cutting the time in a job in half. But then if we move to a 4-day work week, then many people will be incentivized to pick up a part-time job in that 5th day. If we move to a 20-hour a week work week, many people will get a second job. In the same way that we saw that when women broadly entered the workforce, people expected that they would have more money in the household to afford more things. What really happened is that we doubled the size of the labor force, so things increased in price. Because it just becomes a new baseline. So economics is a hard thing to study, right? And like, this is something that like probably someone will win a Nobel Prize for eventually for studying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's see what happens. I mean, that seems like I think just overall in general, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of uncertainty to some degree, but also knowing as I would say just humanity, right? If you think about it, we've recurringly been through cycles like this where there has been some innovation and then society drastically changes. There's also been hesitation there, and so are we going to be okay? What do you think?
I think we'll be fine. I think it'll be really uncomfy, but we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then I think it'll get comfortable. Like there's a fly. My optimistic view is like there's all this idea of like a cyberpunk future where cyberpunk is like dystopian and the opposite of that is like solar punk, where it's like we all live on like little self-sustaining farms with like solar energy and you have little robots picking your like fresh tomatoes every day, whatever.
Yeah.
And that seems much more lovely.
Yeah.
And there's like the Star Trek-esque future where like our real goal of humanity is to move into the stars, to explore new planets, to set up new human civilizations, and to interface with, if there are other beings out there, to learn about them and to, spread our wings. And that could be really inspirational for humans. And that might be our next phase. In the same way that's like we crossed the ocean to, I know people are already here, but like came here, discovered the new world, all of those kind of things. And, that kept people really, invigorated about future potential. So I'm not going to pretend to know what it's going to be like in 100 years or 200 years. What the transhumanists believe is that like the successor species to humans will likely be some kind of immortal cyborg. That we can upload our consciousness to the cloud in some capacity. And I'm not sure that there's a lot of questions about this. Like there's an idea, someone can correct me in the comments with that, but like about Thucydides' ship, which is a Greek parable about a boat that goes to war. And when the boat goes to war, it's damaged. And then they replace some boards in the ship. And then the boat goes to war again and replaces more boards, and to war again, replaces more boards. And at some point, 51% of the boards in the ship have been replaced. And at some point, 100% of the boards in the ship have been replaced. And the question really is, at what point is it an entirely new ship? Right? It is made up of 0% of the components of the previous ship. So if you're Alia and you have a brain chip installed into you, then you say, my brain is 20% AI right now. And then eventually you're 51% AI. even though I'm interacting with you currently, it's been training on you the whole time. Are you still Alia on the inside? Or did you fade out of existence at some point when it overtook? Or are you still in there, but you're not the one controlling the movement of your mouth or the words that come out, where it's almost like an iron coffin situation?
Okay.
Which is the one that I find to be the most concerning. But yeah, to the point, the transhumanists believe that we are creating our own more perfect successor species. I don't know. I'm not saying I endorse the idea, but that is what people believe.
It's interesting to think about these things, I would say.
Yeah.
It's definitely, there's a lot more, I would say, a lot of different pathways to just baseline what we think, where we might be headed. This has been an enlightening conversation. I think that I have learned so much in the sense that it's been nuanced.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that need to be considered when it comes to it. So last question before we go, I do want to ask, when it comes to all of this, clearly we've had the discussion where it's like some people have a very general scope in terms of belief and understanding when it comes to what AI is doing, and then some people more pronounced. How would you say those individuals can catch up so that they're not completely left behind?
Just do something, right? Like, it's just do something. Like, I don't know. Like, I've had people ask me my whole life, like, oh, how do I learn about X? How do I learn about Y? And it's like, just start and accept that you're going to be terrible at it, and you will get better. Find a project that's ambitious and say, I'm going to make myself a thing that does this, and then be okay at failing at it. And you will innately learn along the way how to solve a problem or how things work as you go down the rabbit hole and you read more and you watch more videos and you learn more. So I would say that, and this is because it's the way I personally learn, is by doing something, you will understand more about it than just reading about it in the news. And if you're not doing it, then expect to be scared and left behind. Like, I don't know. So try things.
Yeah.
Be creative.
Yeah. You heard.
Yeah.
Try things and be scared. And it's okay to be scared. I feel you have to have all ranges of emotions. So I think it's definitely that's great advice. But Josh, I want to thank you so much for being here. It has been such an enlightening conversation. And I hope to have you back.
I'd love to come back.
Amazing. All right. Thank you.